Hello friends, this is Mimi from Meadowsweet.com, here to share with you how I use Airtable to organize my financial life. This is how I track my spending, savings, and net worth. This is going to be a two-part video because there's a lot of information and I want to make sure to walk you through step by step. There's certain features that I use in my personal tracker that are really sophisticated and a little too clunky for me to explain in this particular video series. So I've streamlined this example so that you can start using your own tracker right away. As you use it, you'll be able to do more with your tracker and add on to it to suit your personal situation. If you're not familiar with Airtable, it is a spreadsheet meets database that you can use on your desktop and mobile devices. I've been using the free version for over a year and I love it. Now, before we get into how I set up my tracker, I wanted to note why I even started tracking in the first place. Back in May of 2019, I read a book called Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin, and it completely changed everything I thought about my personal finances. If you are someone that is turned off by a lot of the typical white male talking heads telling you that you can't spend money on lattes, then I highly recommend this book. I downloaded the audiobook and listened to it on my daily commute. Vicki doesn't talk about investment portfolios, stocks, or retirement funds, at least not until the very last chapter, but instead talks about your relationship with money. Her book helped me go from being afraid to even look at my bank accounts online to being confident to talk about how I'm paying down debt and saving for the future. And yes, I've talked about money with complete strangers because that's how much Vicki's book has helped me. One of the principles in her book is to track every penny that comes into and out of your life. To do this step, I struggled to find spending trackers that worked well for me. My life doesn't really fit well into the typical budget categories, and I hated how inflexible a lot of the trackers were. So I set out to make my own. The reason I went with Airtable is because it gave me the features of an Excel spreadsheet, but is more nimble and visually beautiful. I tell people that Airtable is kind of like Excel and Canva met and had a baby, and that baby went on to work for Google. It's just a great product. Here I've built an example so I can show you how I set up my tracker for one calendar year and all the ways that I use it. Up at the top here, you can see that I have several different tabs: income, expenses, savings, assets, and net worth. Let's start with the first tab, income. I have created the following fields so that you can track everything in an organized manner. The first field is the date field. And if I click on Customize Field Type, you can see that this is a formula field. Because this is what's called a primary field, I can't move it or hide it. I have to do something with it that represents what the field is all about. It's kind of like a summary box. So for this, I have it combine the next two, month and type. Now, for the month field, you can see that this is called a single select field. And I insert each month throughout the year. So for instance, I can add in here August. Save. The next field is called the type field, and what I mean by that, also a single select, I put in the types of income that I get. So I get a regular payroll. Sometimes I get money from my husband either to help me pay for groceries, or he'll sometimes give me money to cover the cost of some takeout. I also have a side hustle that I do at certain points of the year. I might get money back from a store return, but I also have an other category. And the reason that I have an other category is because sometimes you get some income that you weren't expecting and it doesn't really fall into any of these other categories. So for instance, I got a little bit of I overpaid on an insurance premium, and that's where the other type came in really handy. Now, next you're obviously going to track your income, and that's a currency field. So you can select currency and decide if you want what level of precision. I obviously keep it at the dollar. If you want to do negative numbers, you can do that. I don't know how you would do that, but it's an option there for you. Also, please put in your pay date. This is a really easy one. Select date. And you can change this to be however you want, either US or more friendly with the date month in here. You can do a European style, whatever's easiest and most comfortable for you. And then I also like to put in a notes. This is a single line text field. And sometimes the notes come in handy. So for instance, if my husband decides to give me some money to cover the cost of takeout, then I just put a little note in here that the money he gave me was to cover the cost of that takeout for that day. Now, my income has really varied over the year, but being able to see what money is coming into and out of my life has been so helpful, so I can plan out my spending in a much more thoughtful way. So let's plug in some numbers. And yes, these are my actual numbers so you can see how that works. I've already plugged in some numbers here, but let's do one more. So we select our month. I'm going to select the type. This one was payroll. And I put in my amount. Select the date. And I can put in a note if I need to. Now I did from Valentine's Day through about mid-March, and you can see all this great information that is listed here. I can see when things came in, I can see all the information that I want, but let's sort this information because as time goes on and as you go through the year, you're going to want to sort through exactly how much money came into your life and when it came into your life. So you can go up to the group button here and click on it and pick a field to group by. Let's pick by month. Here I can see in the month of February I made $2,189.96, whereas in March, up to about mid-March, I've made $1,710.78. Now, if I want to get even more fancy, I can group these by, let's say, type. So I can see that so far between Valentine's Day and mid-March, the amount of information I have in this particular example, I made $2,686 from my standard payroll. Whereas with my side hustle income, I made a little over $1,000. This is really helpful information to have because sometimes you want to find out how you're doing in a particular job or on a side hustle and track those incomes in a brand new way. So I really like this feature, the grouping feature. You can also change how you sort, so you can change whether you want it to come earliest to furthest away, whatever it is best for you. So I like too that you can also decide to keep it sorted so that when you come back to Airtable, the view that you most recently had it on is the view that you will continue to have. Now let's move on to expenses. You'll notice a lot of similarities between this tab and the Incomes tab. And I start with the formula, just like I had before, month and type. And I also have a cost. The cost is also a currency, so you can select that field. But something different is that I have a notes field that is a long text notes field. And the reason for that is that I like to put in the information of where I bought something and the item that I purchased. If I just put in, say, Target, that doesn't give me all the information about what I purchased. So I like to have a summary of information of what I purchased. Now, if I buy a really big purchase with lots of different things, I might say, instead of, toothpaste, hairbrush, shampoo, I might just say personal hygiene items, and that's fine. Whatever works for you. The key is really that you can go back and look at the information and have a clear understanding of where your money has gone. Next is a date field so that you can put in the projected or actual date. Now, the reason that I have projected and actual is because certain expenses are things that I can project out a long time from now. So I have recurring fees like my Canva subscription, and I put that down every single month because I already know that that's coming my way. I also have one-time annual renewals like my Amazon Prime account that I know is coming in November, and I don't want to be caught off guard by that. So having the projected date is just as helpful as having the actual date. I also have a checkbox. That tells me if that is completed, and you can change the style if you are on the Pro plan. I obviously am not, but I like to have this checkbox here because it tells me if I paid for things and that's already off my plate. Now, this is a field that's totally optional and not something that you have to have, but I do find it helpful if you get reimbursed. So this is an attachments field, and you can basically attach items in here where you can drop files of receipts. You can use things from a link, a web search, photos, Instagram. I mean, this is a really cool feature that obviously Excel doesn't have. So this is a really cool thing that I encourage you to use. Now, one of the things I want to mention, and that's really important to me, is to talk about this type field right here. As you go along, you're going to change this. For example, my friends and I go to Disney World about once a month, and for a really long time, I would put any food purchases that I made at Disney under my eating out category. Now, that didn't feel quite right to me, and so I ended up changing that to my Disney expenses category, and that has worked a lot better. It tells me how much money am I spending at Disney? How much money am I giving that particular company? And a lot of budget sheets and spending trackers use really broad categories like travel. And I just don't think that that really means much of anything. Is that travel for work or fun? Does that include gas or maybe renting a car? What I'm saying here is that you can come up with categories that work for you. Please be creative. I have a skincare/hair care category as well as a manicure/pedicure category. Why? Because that's just what works for me. Trying to lump all of that into a personal grooming category isn't really what helps me make smarter decisions about my spending. For example, having a manicure/pedicure category helped me realize how much money I was spending on getting my nails done every single month. And to fast track my debt payoff, I decided, hey, I don't need to spend $700 a year while I'm paying off debt just to be able to get my nails done. So I was able to give up getting my nails done so that I could fast track my debt payoff. So that's a really important thing that I wanted to mention is don't be afraid to get into the types of spending and make them work for you. So we're going to plug in some real numbers and see how this works. Great. Now we can see lots of detail in here. We can group again by the type as well as subgroup by month. And I like this because I can go back and say, wow, in the month of February, I was able to put away this much money, over $1,000, just on my credit card debt. And I really like being able to look at how much I've spent per month per category. You can collapse information if you want to get to certain details faster, or say you want to be able to get to a certain month quicker. I love that I can get a sum of everything that I've spent for the year down here at the bottom, And that sum is really helpful because at the end of the calendar year, I want to know how much money I've spent in total towards debt payments and on regular life spending, and be able to say, compare that to how much income I've had for the year. Now, I hope this video was super helpful for you in getting started on creating your first tracker in Airtable. Please stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to look at tracking your savings, your assets, and your net worth. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.